This would be something that's, see the rivets there? Those would be done by hand. So you can tell the difference by how the items are put together.
Hi everyone, welcome to Capital Vintage Charm School. Today we have Tracey and Cristina from Camino Collective Home to talk to us about copper. Thank y'all so much for doing this today. I'm really excited to learn more about copper.
Thank you for having us.
Of course, so we were actually talking before we started recording about how copper is kind of like this unsung vintage hero, that everybody loves brass. And we agreed that we all love brass too, but there's just something about copper. So anyway, I'm so excited y'all could join us today to give us a little rundown about it. So thanks for coming, ladies. So let's get started. Why is copper so popular, especially copper cookware?
Well, I'm gonna go ahead.
You can go.
Okay, we think there's two reasons. One is copper cookware is really popular amongst chefs and really hardcore cooks because of the conductivity of it, the heat. It heats up the food very evenly, and it also heats up really fast.
Really fast. The water boils really quickly with copper.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, so you're able to control heat on food a lot better with copper, which is why it became so popular amongst chefs.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then for us personally, I think we just like the way that it looks. We like the color of copper. We like that. Personally, I prefer when it's aged a bit and the color has deepened to more of a, burnished sort of
Copper color.
Versus the pinkier color when it's like, yeah. So
here's one we've polished. It has sort of the pinkier color.
And here's one that's not polished. So I prefer when it's aged a bit.
This looks more like a penny.
Yeah, and has that sort of aged patina to it versus the more pinky look to it. But the warmth of it, we feel like it looks really good in kitchens, especially modern kitchens.
Yeah, and especially right now, since white kitchens have had their heyday, they're so popular. The patina of the copper looks really beautiful in a white kitchen. It kind of warms up the kitchen to make it not look so stark white. Mm-hmm. So if you have copper pots hanging or you have some copper accessories sitting on a shelf, it just really warms the kitchen up without, having to add a color to it.
Right. Yeah. I know there's nothing prettier than having a copper collection hanging above a stove in the kitchen or whatever. It's just, it's so pretty.
Beautiful.
So what materials would like a copper pot be lined with? Because we'll see the copper on the outside and then there's the silver material on the inside. What is that?
So typically copper, if you're cooking with copper, it's important to have a lining in it because copper, if you're cooking something that is particularly acidic, like spaghetti sauce, let's say, anything that has an acid base to it, the copper can leach into the food and it not only doesn't taste good, it's bad for you. The FDA actually put out a warning many, many years ago about it. So you have to have a liner on it if you are cooking something specifically acidic, but generally speaking, you want a liner on it. So there's several different liners.
So the most frequent ones you'll see are tin and stainless steel.
Okay.
And the tin is usually the French-made ones that are actually more valuable than some of the other, like American-made ones, are made with tin. And the tin melts. So when they put the tin into the copper, it melts to the copper and kind of becomes, solidified.
Oh.
There's also an option that more people in the United States make them with is stainless steel. And the stainless steel doesn't adhere to the copper. It has to be kind of machine adhered onto it, and it still is a great pot to cook in, but it affects the way the heat heats up evenly on the pot. So the tin, because it adheres to it, still keeps the pot, still makes the copper heat evenly. But the stainless steel, because there's sort of a barrier in there, the stainless steel the copper doesn't cook as evenly and heat up quite as quickly as it does with the tin. So if you want an authentic pot, you want to buy one that has a tin liner.
So
And heats up quickly.
if we were looking at like an old piece, a vintage piece, likely, it would more than likely be tin, you think?
Anything, what it looks like based on what we've researched, anything before the 60s would probably be tin.
Okay.
Anything after the 60s wouldn't necessarily be tin. It may be stainless, it may be tin. It just depends on the manufacturer. And to your point earlier, usually the French and the Europeans tend to do more tin. However, there are some US manufacturers and specifically some companies that have come out more recently that are doing tin also, because stainless steel just doesn't have the same conductivity, whereas tin on copper is very similar because tin is malleable.
Mm-hmm.
So it has the same, it's about the same heat difference, whereas stainless is completely different, such a different material from the copper that it just doesn't cook, it doesn't have the same effectiveness in cooking.
So are there any tips that you could give us on how we would be able to tell if we were holding a copper pan or a copper, whatever piece, if it was tin or stainless?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think we have any tin because we've sold a lot of our copper of late, but we have this we believe to be a stainless steel pan. First of all, you can tell the age by the rivets. So these are machine rivets, they're not hand hammered. Mm-hmm. Whereas, let me see if, let's look at this one. This would be something that's, see the rivets there? Those would be done by hand. So you can tell the difference by how the items are put together. So I don't know if you can see inside the pan.
So it looks like the machine ones have a little bit more of a,
they're perfect. There's no imperfection to them. They don't look hammered in. They look, placed in, and they're very even. Like they're all the same. Whereas anything that's hammered in does not have that. The riveting is very much like hammered in, and one might be more squished in than the other, and they just don't have that same kind of even look. And then what Tracey was saying earlier, before we were talking, is about the lip, right?
Yeah, I've just noticed a lot of the ones that are tin, the lip goes straight up. It doesn't have that rolled one like yours did.
So this has a rolled lip.
That's just what I think. I haven't read that, but
and also the inside of this particular pan, the inside of it has the machine that sort of pattern when they put it in. So to me, this looks like a stainless steel pan.
It has the sort of circles that stainless steel kind of has those circles that go around in it, where the tin is going to be more of a flat looking inside. It's not going to have the brushed sort of look that the stainless steel has.
And then of course you would have to look at the manufacturer too. I'm trying to see if I can see the manufacturer.
Most of the European ones are tin. If it says made in Paris or made in Belgium, they're usually tin.
Okay.
But, a lot of people buy them from Williams-Sonoma because they sell copper pots. And
yeah.
Williams-Sonoma would say if it's stainless steel or tin. But your question is, if you see it in a antique store and you want to buy it, the best advice is, it's hard to show on there, but you can kind of see how this was circles around here, like it was sort of brushed on. I think that's stainless.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on condition? If it's...
That's a good question.
So if it's to use it, I mean, it's one thing to just like display it in your house or whatever, but if you wanted to actually use it, can you get some of the grit out of that stainless steel? If it's tin, you would probably have to re-tin it, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so condition wise, it first of all, it depends on how you're using it. So for
Something you're
instance,
cooking with.
yeah, if you're getting a colander, this happens to have either a tin or a stainless steel inside, but honestly, a colander doesn't really need that because you're not cooking with it. So you can use this even if the whole thing was copper.
And so something like this, which is a little match, that's not, the inside's not tinned or stainless steel because you're not cooking with it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh.
So it in that sense, it doesn't
And
matter.
utensils that we have here, they don't matter because you're not heating those up and cooking the food inside of it. So the things that you're cooking the food inside need to have an inside covering, tin or stainless steel. I mean, there are other things, but mostly you're going to see tin and stainless steel.
Yeah, specifically.
Just because it touches the food doesn't necessarily mean that it has to have that. It's just if you're cooking in it.
Yeah, because it requires that the heat be so high that the copper actually leaches into the food, and it really only happens, according to what I've looked at, it really only happens with specifically with acidic foods. So apparently there are jam makers that specifically use pots that are not necessarily lined.
Right.
Because
for jam, it's better not to use it.
Yeah, because even though it's fruit and the fruit has acid in it, all the sugar that goes into it like stabilizes it, so it's no longer an acidic base. And they actually prefer the taste of a jam made in a copper pot than a jam made in a regular pot. So there you go. But so there's
chefs. I wouldn't know the difference.
Not me.
Yeah. My palate was that, I don't know, that's specific. I don't know.
It's specific. So my understanding is if you are, I don't know that I would necessarily test it because I wouldn't want my food to taste metallic, but if you're cooking, like if you have a deep pan and it's, maybe it's not perfect on the bottom or whatever, and you make spaghetti, maybe that doesn't mean, if you're just cooking pasta, it wouldn't make any difference. But what you want to avoid, so, when you're looking for a copper pot, regardless of whether it's lined with tin or with stainless steel, you want to avoid anything that has like deep scratches or pitting that exposes the copper. So surface scratches, not a big deal. But if it's deep scratches, deep like gouges in it, or if it's cracking and like flaking off is what they say, which, if I saw that in a pan, I don't think that I would buy it anyway. But then it requires you to either re-tin it, which is what you said, or
stainless steel, you can't do anything about it. The pot's done. You use it as a planter or
just decor.
You can't add stainless steel to it, but the tin, you can get it re-tinned. And if you happen to find a beautiful pot at a estate sale or an auction or something, and it is tin and it has rubbed off, if the pot is, $40 to $50, you're going to pay, like that size pot will probably be about $70 to re-tin it. You're still paying less than,
than a brand new
pot that's going to be about $200.
Yeah.
So can I show y'all this piece? I would love your thoughts on it. This one is, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to show this to you. Do you see the inside of it?
Yeah.
I'm feeling it. It doesn't feel like it's chipped. There's no major gashes that I can feel. Is this just surface wear? Can you see? I don't know that I'm doing.
I can see that. You can see the copper, right?
Yeah, it looks so, and what I'm looking at, it looks like the copper's popping through.
Okay.
Is that true? Does the orange, that kind of pinky color come through?
I think so. I mean, I don't think that would be.
So in that case, then I would say I wouldn't cook with it. You can certainly serve with it, and it would be pretty hanging in your kitchen, but I wouldn't cook with it. And the fact that it looks like the
It's kind of
that
like
is
tin.
right, because the
here.
fact that it's so rubbed
Right.
off to me makes me think that it might be tin.
Okay.
Um,
So now I'm looking at all my pieces, right?
right.
I'm looking at that. So I'm assuming it doesn't look hammered in, hand done.
It doesn't look that old, but you'd have to look around at the handles to see if it has like a manufacturer's mark somewhere.
Most of those are on the handles and not on the bottom. Or
Usually, no.
It
Usually, it's
depends.
on the. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, sure, but it usually it's like somewhere on the brass part of it. You usually wouldn't see it on the actual.
okay.
hand.
But like this one, this little jam jar, it's on the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think. I'm trying to look and see if there's anything else.
Okay, well,
Okay.
so I've never actually cooked with it, but I'm glad to know that I can use it for serving because I've been too scared to do anything with it,
Mhm.
not knowing if it was food safe or not.
Well, you could serve with it, just don't heat it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, even if it's hot food in it, that's okay. But if you're heating the bottom
Okay.
where the copper is, that would be the danger if it's seeping through.
Yeah.
So helpful. Thank you. So is there a certain, I think it's easy to spot, right? Like really pretty old ones. Because they're like you could just kind of tell, right? But these I think are a little bit more difficult when you kind of run across them because you're like, I don't know, is this considered real copper? Or is there something that's like a copper lined type thing, like you would do maybe in a brass?
Well, it's almost like you can have something that's gilded in in gold, or you can have something so it may or like silver plate.
Right.
You can have something that's copper plate.
Okay.
So that may be copper plate. It's honestly
It also depends on, you can get different thicknesses of copper.
So that's what I was going to ask. Does that matter in
Yeah,
terms
so
of like?
the thicker ones are more valuable. And, in researching it, trying to figure out for myself, like learn about it, they get out the, a ruler and they measure the thickness of it. And even the slightest bit more thickness makes the pot more valuable. So I can't tell how thick yours is there. And I'm not an expert on that yet, but we're learning. We're researching and trying to figure it out. But some manufacturers, like the ones in Europe, the French and the Belgian and the Italian ones, usually have a more of a copper thickness than some of the others. Like I read somewhere that, because I was looking this up, and it's made in Portugal, and it's like Portugal copper is not as thick. I can't tell that from just looking at it, but I'd have to get it out and measure it, and usually the thick ones are heavy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's a bit more heft to it.
Okay, so would it be safe to assume that it wouldn't be as valuable if it were lighter, or it just would depend?
Like if you were trying to value it for insurance purposes or resell it, if you have two pans and one's lighter than the other, the lighter one is not going to be as valuable as the heavier one, because that means it has more copper.
So you've mentioned several times the different countries. I mean, I think as far as anybody would immediately think, French kind of jumps out to me as, French copper and how, it's just kind of known for it. What other countries should we be on the lookout for, or what manufacturers are considered kind of like the gold star, or just ones around here in the US that we should be on the lookout for?
So we try to research. We'd also always heard about the French copper being so valuable, but we did our research. We went to Worldwide Coppersmith and a couple of other sites on people who are just very, very much copper enthusiasts. Do you want to say the name?
We don't really know how to say the names because we're not French, but
Mouvier.
So it's Mauviel is a iconic French manufacturer that's 7 generations in on making copper pots. And if you ever find one of those are usually tin, and they're buy it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how much it is.
If
Just
you like copper, if that's your thing.
right.
And
Yeah.
then
Go ahead.
you can say the next ones.
There's one that's
Gilliard.
Gilead.
I say Gilliard, but it's G. G-A-I-L-L-A-R-D.
I cannot speak French. So there's also
And
sorry.
After 1960, any pot that was made in France has to say made in France.
Okay.
So if you see one of these names and you can't pronounce them like we can't, if it says made in France, then it's probably from a pretty good manufacturer.
The other thing is so yes, the French are definitely known for having fabulous copper pots and pans. However, I was looking in our research, there's also some manufacturers that are from Italy, some from Belgium for sure. And there's even some copper manufacturers that are from England that have been around for a long time, that are also very good, very high quality. And then there's the ones that have come along in the past, like much more recently, so they may not necessarily be vintage, but apparently there's Brooklyn Copper cookware, and Brooklyn Copper actually retins for people. So they're manufacturing their own line of cookware as well. So Brooklyn Copper is one of the places that you go if you want to retin your copper pans, but they also have a line. So you know that theirs is going to be quality because it's what they're saying is that it's handmade and it's tin. So
and that's
it's
a US company.
And that is a US company. So it's not just about the European companies.
So what is your favorite copper cleaner? Well, let's back this up. So I agree. I like it when it's kind of got that, I don't know, crust is what I'll say. I think it shows age, and I like that patina. But would there be something that you would suggest to clean? Meaning, like, is it better to keep your pans clean and you can leave your copper utensil holder dirty, or does that matter?
I don't know that it matters that much. For us, when we get a piece, it really depends. There's some that are varnished, and so I'm going to show you. This is the copper pot that we got, and the top looks like this. So this is the side that I cleaned, and this is the side that the varnish, I don't know what happened to it, but it became aged and it sort of kind of bubbled
but
up.
usually pots don't have varnish. If you're cooking with them, they don't
Correct.
usually have varnish.
So this didn't look like that, but the lid did.
Huh.
Because they put a varnish on it when it's something that, they want to try to keep the color, but I'm guessing they heated it too much. And so the varnish sort of bubbled up. So you can see the difference. So the way that we got from here to here is with Barkeeper's Friend.
Okay.
Having said that though,
We actually did a couple things on it.
Yeah, we did, because I also used, what was it? The lemon and the salt.
Yeah, you can use lemon juice and salt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we used at first to make sure that this would come off, and it did. And so, then we had to put some elbow grease in, and while we were scrubbing it, we poured some Barkeeper's Friend on it too.
Yeah.
But we also use, when it's slightly just a little dirty and we need to clean it up, we use white's polish that you can get from Amazon.
Are you using a rag? Are you using a sponge? Is there anything in particular that you like as far as cleaning?
Well, it depends. This little guy had a varnish on it, and I don't know if you can see it, like on the top, you can see sort of some little marks.
Right.
Really big sticky marks on it because the varnish had started to come off. So I first tried the lemon and salt, and it wasn't budging that varnish. So, and it just looked ugly because it had these little marks all over it. So I then used Barkeeper's Friend. That wasn't getting it all off. So I ended up using fingernail polish remover to get all the varnish off. And then I had to use one of those scrubby sponges that you would scrub a nonstick pan with.
Uh-huh.
I just used that to try and get the rest of it off. I mean, I did a good job because there was so much of it, but you can still see a few little marks on it.
Yeah, you should.
Can you see the little There
Yeah.
were big marks like that all over it.
Yeah.
And they came off just with a lot of elbow grease.
Wow.
Oh, and this one, I just used barkeepers on this one. So here's what it looked like.
Which is what I prefer.
Oh.
And then today I was like, oh, they'll look better shiny on, on this interview. So I just polished one side with barkeeper's friend. And you can see, like here, you can especially see the difference.
Oh.
And so there are two kinds of people who like it like this or, like it like that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in between. I
kind of want to keep it like that, right? So like when I'm feeling extra sassy, and then on the other days, I'm like, look at me, I'm keeping a perfectly clean and polished home.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's something called Wright's Copper Cleaner.
Yeah, that's what we
also, which
that was just upstairs in my office, and I didn't want to go get it.
which, but we've used that before, and for something that you're just cleaning the patina off of it,
Yeah.
It works great.
It has the Wright's comes with a little sponge, and you just
Yeah.
rub the sponge all over it, and it works really nicely. And they also have a great silver polish.
Okay. Take me through really quick that varnish again. Could you show me that lid? How?
Yeah. Look,
If I'm looking at a piece and I'm looking at it without knowing anything about it, would I be able to tell? I would be able to assume that discoloration is the varnish coming off, or?
So it's hard. It's really hard to see online, but you can feel there's like a rough. This is very smooth and feels like very silky copper.
Right.
This has like, it feels like there's something on it. Anytime that you go into a thrift store or an antique store, you might run into something that has like layers of grease and dirt and grime on it, and it feels sort of sticky.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this felt like.
Okay.
But this would not polish up with Wright's. So the recommendation, according to experts, is not to use barkeepers, is to use other things because you don't want to scratch
if
the
it's
copper.
not dirty like that.
But when it's like this, you can't. You have to use something that's going to scrub off a lot more.
This one I just wiped, no scrubbing, nothing. But I wanted to show these two.
Yeah.
So this one was all messed up too.
It looked like this.
Cheese spread. Yeah, it looked like that one.
It looked like
So
this.
if you see something that's like a cheese shaker or salt and pepper or a jam jar, it's most likely going to have a varnish like this. So if I can show you right here, don't look at my fingernails, but right there.
Okay.
See that little spot? You can kind of see where it's sort of tarnishing through the varnish. And if I rubbed this, that spot would stay there because it's under the varnish. But if I took probably not, I wouldn't do this to this one, but we had some really cute little liquid copper measuring cups one time, and they looked like this. They looked terrible.
They were like that.
So I just kept rubbing fingernail polish on them until I got all the varnish off, and then their beauty came out. They were gorgeous, and that's what we'll have to do with these.
So on the top right there where you can kind of see, yes, okay, so on that one,
The
that's the
varnish
varnish coming off, and you would take fingernail polish remover to remove the remaining amount of before you polished it.
Yes, and this is what this one looked like that. And actually, when I was cleaning this one, I thought the top was brass. I didn't even know it was copper because it was a different color under there than this part. So when I cleaned it, I'm like, oh, that's brass like the bottom. But as I started wiping it with the fingernail polish, it came out as the copper.
So I think the recommendation is start slow, right? Start with the least impacting thing. And if that doesn't work, then move on to the next. So I would probably start with Wright's polish, copper polish. Then I would start with the salt and lemon.
How much lemon? Do you just kind of squeeze it together?
I just squeezed a lemon and soaked a towel in it. Because what it said was, when I was cleaning this one, to put the salt
on it.
And then lay the lemon cloth, wrap it in the lemon cloth. So, I just did spots because the salt would fall off.
Right.
And then I just would let it lay on that spot until I could rub it off.
So, and then there are some sites that recommend even ketchup using ketchup because of a little bit of acidity in it. Not enough to damage it, but enough to get some of the stuff off. But if that doesn't work, then you get out like the big muscle things, and that is
And you know,
this guy and the
my
nail
decision
polish
on
remover.
this one was, it looked so bad with the little spots of sticky varnish all over it that I didn't think, you know,
You can make it worse.
I could make it worse. Like I could only make it better by getting those little spots off, because it was ugly before, and like you would look at it and think, oh, that's too old.
Right.
But actually, if you keep working with copper, it will come back. So
Yeah.
I just kept working and using different products until I could get all that varnish off of it.
Well, and to be fair, we think that these are old enough too, that there's enough copper on them, because if you have something that is barely copper, all that rubbing is just going to rub off the copper. And that's the danger, right? That's the thing that we don't know. We can only sort of guess based on what it looks like, if it's going to be, you know, if it's going to work or not.
But something like this probably hasn't been, like if you're cooking on a pot, that copper could, you know, break down. But
Right.
something like this that you're not
Right.
heating up, I mean, the copper's going to be pretty still thick in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you
So
have
how do you store your copper? Do you do anything in particular? Is copper like silver? The more you use it, the less patina it gets, or is that it's just a chemistry?
We don't really do it because I like I don't think so. I don't think it's like silver. I think actually heat and exposure is the same. It'll tarnish, but because I prefer the patina and the tarnish, like, you know, the tarnish of it, I don't have any issues with just leaving it out. So we don't store it in any particular way. Once we clean it, it's out. And then, you know, if we put it up for sale, then it's up to the person who purchases it, whether they want to shine it up or not.
Yeah, because oftentimes we don't, like this we hadn't cleaned.
No.
Because we don't know what the person, you know, someone might buy it and can't wait to get home to clean it up and make it look pretty. But then someone might buy this because the patina is old.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to have to polish the whole thing now because I polished one side, but hopefully someone will see this and want the shiny one and think, wow, that's so pretty. And it catches your eye too when we have it in our shop. If it's polished, I feel like people look at it more. If it's sort of the duller color, it might get lost on the Christmas tree that we had, or
Right.
that you saw that we had these hanging on.
I mean, and this one, unfortunately, we don't have any more copper pots that were hammered, but to me, anything that's hammered just
It's
has
beautiful.
is
We've had
beautiful.
some trays that were hammered trays that were
just
so pretty.
So beautiful. And so the hammered too, that's something that comes with handmade and better quality. So that's another thing you were asking about, what to look for. Something that's hammered is gonna.
Are these coming?
Yeah, these are.
These are hammered.
So these are cooking utensils.
Oh,
Look at the back of this one. You
Yeah.
can see the hammered on it.
yes.
So someone handmade these and then hammered the dents in it to make it.
And just to be clear, these are cooking utensils, but I would not cook with these. These are for serving.
Okay.
Or displaying. They would be beautiful hanging on a wall in a kitchen.
Yeah, they actually have the hooks to display, because number one, if you have a nonstick pan or a copper pan, you don't want to use a metal utensil on your pan. And number two, these are not tin lined or anything, so you wouldn't want to be cooking with them, but you can definitely serve with them. So just wanted to point
I think
that
you
out.
could cook with them.
You think so?
Yeah, you could, but
I
they're
don't
so
think so.
pretty. I wouldn't want to. I would want
I
to
don't think I
display
would.
them. But it's not. But these are not copper lined for that. I mean,
Tin lined.
tin lined, because you're not. I mean, maybe not leave it in the pan while your food is cooking, but you could cook with them. But it does say, I did read that backing up what Cristina just said, is that when you have the tin lined copper pans, you should use a wooden spoon or a plastic spoon.
Oh, okay. To not scratch the tin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like tin is actually a non-stick surface. If that's another way that you can tell if it's so stainless steel, the food will stick, and if it's tin, it is a non-stick surface. It behaves like non-stick pans. So you do not want to use any sort of metal on it because it will damage it. It will damage it.
But if you had a regular old stainless steel stock pot that, that I have, you could use this.
Yeah, that's true.
But I wouldn't leave it in there while the soup is cooking. I would remove it.
And then use it, yeah.
And then this would be great with what are those skillets, those black ones? Cast iron.
Oh, with cast iron. Sure, you could use that. That's true. So in that sense, I'm thinking I wouldn't cook with it in a copper pot.
Right.
But yes, you are right. We could absolutely use it in cast iron.
And from what we said before, because you're not heating that up on the fire or on the burner, these are okay to use. But I wouldn't use them. I would hang them because they have these great little hooks, and
I know
they're just so pretty.
And they're definitely old. They're definitely handmade. So.
Oh, those would be so pretty in a modern kitchen to give that rustic warm feel.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Like a white kitchen with these hanging somewhere, would just warm it up.
Definitely.
So pretty.
Well, ladies, if you have a few minutes, I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you that I ask everybody who joins us so we can get to know y'all a little bit better. Do y'all have a minute?
Sure.
Okay. So what is your china pattern? Or like, what's your wedding china? Or what's your favorite pattern if you've collected it since then?
Well, I have Wedgwood Greek key, and it's white with blue. But my mother-in-law passed me her china, and since we're at my house, I brought it out. She had a really simple pattern with just gold on it, and actually ended up using these. They're Royal Worcester.
So pretty.
Fine bone china, golden anniversary. So they're has a little gold pattern with vines and flowers, and it's just simple. It goes with a lot. And she also gave me these plates that are Shire, England, and I just got them because she recently passed away, and I had a dinner party, for a very small dinner party, socially distanced, for a friend who turned 50, and I used these for the first time with this, and I loved them. I thought that was so pretty with the green.
Is that the cockatoo pattern? Do you know?
I don't know. Let's see. It says Chelsea bird.
Chelsea bird.
Purples and blues and greens. It's really
beautiful.
Oh, that is gorgeous. I just did a charm school that's going to actually be coming out this weekend with Paige Manier from the Pink Clutch. And she was talking about her, I think it's cockatoo. I don't know how it's pronounced. I don't remember. Anyway, and it's the same pattern. It's so pretty. It is so pretty.
Yeah, it makes me regret because mine is actually Wedgwood Tiara, which is like a Vera Wang pattern, and it's silver and very simple. And that makes me wish that I had gotten something a little bit more to go with it.
The Wedgwood is silver. I mean, the Greek key has gold and then silver on the inside, I think. Mm-hmm. But I like this gold because it goes with more accent plates. Mm-hmm. You can just buy 6 of these and change your whole table.
Yeah, with
the gold. Mm-hmm. I think.
What are y'all hoping to find right now? Like when you're on the hunt and you're looking for yourself, what are you?
We just want to hunt.
I know. We don't have a very specific list of things that we just go with what we love. But I will say, having said that, that I tend to go for lots of prints.
I know, we have a lot of prints.
I tend to go for lots of prints from old books, especially when they're hand colored. So I love getting that kind of stuff. But right now, I feel like we're happy getting anything because, estate sales are so limited. Auctions have gotten crazy expensive. Yeah.
The prices are just going up so high.
I said this. I am so frustrated with auctions right now. Yeah. These estate sales are just generally not wowing me. It's taken a lot to get me out of my sweatpants into the world these days. And I just look at these pictures and I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen beautiful things on auction, but the prices go so high that if we're looking at it for our shop, we can't than turn around and
if we're
try
buying
to.
it for ourselves.
Yeah, it's
Right.
for
I
ourselves,
just-
it's different.
I just bought a little table, and I said the person who was bidding against me, she's not getting the
She's
table.
going down.
I am getting this table.
She's going down.
Isn't it funny how you go into it with a totally different mentality when you know in your house where that item's
Right.
going?
But if I was buying it for Camino, I would never have gone. It was way too much.
Yeah.
I would, wouldn't have bought it for us. But
Even the buyer's minimum, I mean, the
premium.
Oh,
yeah.
the premium, the percentage takes it up.
flying through the roof. I mean, they've all raised them. I'm so with y'all on this.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate. I mean, it is a symptom of
COVID.
where we are right now. Yeah. And so I'm assuming that at some point things will sort of
Even out.
get a little bit back to normal once the state sales go back to being a thing that people feel comfortable going to. But yeah, I mean,
I know.
so we're lucky to get anything right now.
I'm with y'all. I'm totally with y'all. So what is your favorite vintage find? What's your favorite thing that, I know this is a horrible question to ask people, but what's the favorite thing that you found for you, not for the shop?
So for me, there's a couple of things, but one of my most favorite estate sales that we ever went to was in Chevy Chase. And it was a couple, he was in the Foreign Legion and she was a housewife and they had no kids. She had impeccable taste and they collected the most amazing, incredible antiques, books, furniture. You would die. I mean,
And even architectural pieces, like, little gargoyles or concrete gargoyles or concrete birds. Like, we went 3 times.
Yeah. We went every day of that sale, which we hardly ever do.
And it was expensive.
Yeah.
And none of the stuff was, we still have a lot of it because we bought it because we loved it. And then we try to mark it up and people are like, yeah, we're not paying that much.
So were they Camino? Maybe not. Maybe they were more for us. We'll see. So stuff from that sale is amongst my favorite, which one of them is a set of butterfly prints that are from the Royal Academy, and they have the signature at the bottom, and they're hand tinted or hand painted, and they are beautiful. So I still have those in my house. And then another one was a mirror that I got that is like a brass.
Well, actually, she saw the mirror and she's like, you need to get that mirror for your house. I'm like, that doesn't go in my house.
And I said, well, then it's going in mine.
I said, you should put it in your entryway. And she's like, oh yeah. And now it's her favorite thing.
Yeah.
She was trying to make me get it.
I said, one of us
us.
had to get it. It's gorgeous. And that's probably one of my most favorite things. And I've gotten more comments when I photograph stuff that we're selling and I put the mirror behind it. They're like, what about that mirror?
I know exactly the mirror that you're talking about, because I'm pretty sure I've been like, what is that? Can I have that? What's going on? Can I buy it?
It's gorgeous. And I've never seen anything like it. I
Nothing like
recently saw one similar and I sent it to him. Like, this kind of looks like your mirror. It has no marks on it. We have no idea who made it, where it came from, but it's beautiful. And it's really heavy. It's not that big, but it's heavy and solid and looks great in her house.
Tracy, what's your favorite?
I know you were thinking about it.
I know. So I have a bunch of little collections of things. I don't know if you saw our stories this week. I was sharing.
I loved the way y'all did that. This is how I vintage.
Yeah. So I like some of that. I love that sand dollar that I bought. A lot of the stuff is not as. I love a little mirror that I bought that I have hanging in my dining room. I have a lot of silver and I love my silver. I know they're not silver, real silver, they're silver plate, but I bought some silver goblets at a sale that we were at together. And I love them at Christmas time as my water goblets. They keep the water cold and I keep looking for real silver ones. They usually go over my budget, but I'm going to get some because I love them. I love the way they look on my Thanksgiving and Christmas table. So that might be my favorite thing. But some of my favorite things that you saw in the stores the other day are like that deer horn that my son found. Like it's vintage because it's been out in the woods, but I don't know. I just love that because he found it and brought it to me. So I like to add all of that kind of natural stuff in with my vintage things and mix it up.
Are y'all constantly enabling each other at sales?
No, we're good.
We've gotten, I think because we've been doing this for so long, in the beginning, we were like, yeah. And I think we thought,
we bought a lot of furniture when we first started Camino Collective because we wanted to sell furniture.
Yeah.
But we just found we still sell furniture, but we were buying bigger pieces and a lot of it's still sitting in Christina's garage.
But we definitely did enable, but we've gotten better because we now have.
We learned a lot.
Yeah, we've learned a lot, and we now know, what makes sense for the shop, what makes sense for when we're doing sales online. And so
we know when to tell each other to stop, like in an auction. Like I'm usually texting her like, okay, this went up. And the other night there was this stuff and you get caught up in the auction, like I'm like, okay, I'm going to bid $407 on this like lot of stuff. And it went to like $427 really quickly. I'm like, God, it's only $20 more. And she's like, no, put it down, stop.
Yeah, I was like,
you gotta
we're
stop.
done.
I'm
we're
like,
done.
Like, for $20 more.
We're done.
It's so hard, isn't it?
I have to do that to her sometimes too. Yeah. Like we can't sell that, like.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like look all the time is, should I get this? And well, maybe, but can we sell it? We always have to ask each other, can we sell it?
I have to constantly like look in the mirror before I actually like do the auction. I'm like, okay, that is it. Not 22, not 27, $20. And then of course it inevitably goes up to like 22. And I'm like, no, I like had that moment with myself that I promised that I wasn't going to bid higher than that.
That's
so hard.
It kills me every time. It kills me every time.
But you know what? I almost think a lot of these estate sale companies are now learning how to do these online auctions. Yeah. And I think that's the way it's going. Because once they've learned it, they have to probably buy some kind of system to set all this up and the bidding. They've invested in that. I don't think that we're going to go back to a lot of in-home estate sales, which is unfortunate because as we've just talked about, the online auctions, more people can bid on it. Because if it's an estate sale on a Friday, someone might not be able to get there till Sunday, or they think, oh, this weekend my kids have a lot of sports, I can't go. But online auctions, everybody can get there, and I think that's what's driving the prices up because there are more people looking, and then I think it's that frenzy of like, oh, but it's only $7 more. I'm going to bid, $28 so I can get it, and I think I unfortunately think that's the way we're moving, and I think it's going to be hard to find a bargain.
I'm worried about that
too. Drive the prices up on everything. Like, the things that we used to sell for $40 are now going to be $80 because everybody who's in this business are going to find this problem.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I keep thinking about that I'm worried about is, like you said, with that is, I'm down for the experience. I don't want to just walk in and go buy whatever I saw in the picture. I want to smell the house. I want to think
sometimes you don't want to smell the house.
No, that's true. Sometimes you don't, right?
More times than not.
Visualize whatever I'm buying in the place that it came from.
Yeah. Right. And the person who used it. And
I want to think about the family around that table using your silver plate at Christmas. And
I agree.
I want to
I think we're losing that.
I want to see the wallpaper. I want to I just want to feel the things and
feel the spirit that's still around it. The spirit of the person. Most of the time it's someone who's passed away.
Maybe we're a little bit I don't know, but we always ask, who did this belong to? Who's estate sale? What is their history? We generally get some information, which to me is part of the story of the item, and I love the story. So I'm with you all the way, and I hope that you're wrong. But I think that there's going to be, I think that it's going to go, because for a lot of estates companies, it's easier than having to take pictures of everything.
I just think they've invested in the program.
Possibly, hopefully.
I bought a rug from an estate sale. I had no intention. I bought a rug from an estate sale.
She said a bra. I heard that wrong.
And I had no intention of walking in and buying this rug, but the I did the same thing. I was like, who does this belong to? I love the stories. And they told me this great story. And this woman was an immigrant, and she had come over here and she had hand knitted the rug as a wedding present for her husband.
Aw.
And her daughter was actually in the house telling me one of her mom's favorite things. And, you know, it just always breaks my heart when the kids don't want these things. And I was so emotionally attached to this thing that I was like, I can't, you know, like I want her to live on in this. And I don't know. I'd be very upset if that was taken away from me.
Me too.
So
I
what
agree.
was
I
the one
agree. I
thing?
hope I'm wrong, but
Me too. What is the one thing that y'all have not bought that's like haunted you? That you just think, oh man, I should have gotten it.
well, recently we saw these great glasses, and we were like, drinking glass. They were mid-century modern, little
Roly-poly.
as a business. We saw them, and then we each talked ourselves out of getting them for the shop, and then we put a picture of it online, and people went crazy for them, like, oh my god, you should have gotten them.
And we should have gotten
So we
them.
went back the next day, and they were gone. I don't know why we didn't get them.
I don't know.
They were
why we didn't.
unusual. They were cute.
Yeah, they were so
gone.
cute.
Isn't it funny how sometimes you're just like not in the mood to buy? You know,
Yes,
you
I've
should.
been that way actually for a couple months now. I have not been, but I did just do 2 auctions, and now I'm ready again.
It jump started you.
But for you, it was that
Oh, I saw
Hinkle
something
Harris.
personally the other day, and it could have been for the shop too, but it was one of those really beautiful Hinkle Harris chests that have the glass doors, which I don't really like the display part of it, but my new house has a lot of really has high ceilings, and my other house did not. So I'm looking for taller things to take up some of the vertical space in my house, and I bid on it. I went, to like $275, and I'm like, if I can't get it for a great deal, I'm not going to get it. And it sold for like $320. And so I'm kicking myself for not getting it, because there's so many places I could have. I would have probably painted it, but there's so many places I could have put it in my house.
It's so hard because sometimes I'll buy these things, get them home, and I'm like, why did I buy this? Like it's just, there's no rhyme or reason to it, right?
Right. And then, and they sell. Hinkle Harris is out of business, but they probably sold for $8,000 back in the day, 5 to 8, depending on how big it was and stuff. And for it to go for $320, I just keep thinking about it. I could have used that.
I know.
Well, I'll keep my eyes posted and let you know if I come up with one.
I know, right? On
What
Facebook.
did you not get?
I don't know.
She doesn't buy that much for herself when we do vintage.
My house is my husband built our house that I live in 1999. He has very much South Beach, Miami taste.
It was maybe when Miami Vice was on.
It was like shortly after Miami Vice. And so there's a lot in my house that from the outside, it actually looks like a Miami style home. And on the inside, it's like weirdly modern, but from 1980s. So I've been dealing with that for a really long time. So I try to balance, but for me, it's usually, I started since Camino really, because I've always loved Jane Austen and anything Jane Austen, or even the Bronte sisters. So I've collected some Jane Austen books and some Bronte books, and I love them. And there was one that came up, and it wasn't an auction or anything. I missed it on Instagram, and I kicked myself for not having gone immediately. Once I knew the sale was on, for not having gone immediately and gotten it, because it was this beautiful book. And so that's probably one of my more recent ones that I'm sad I didn't get.
Well, I hope a deal is around the corner for both of y'all on those.
There always is.
Right. So would you rather go to an estate sale or a flea market?
Estate sale.
Yeah.
Because what we just talked about, because you get kind of the history of the person, and sometimes there even is a picture of the people who live there, and we love that about it. We love the stories and where they came from, and whenever someone describes an auction, person's lived all over the world, Cristina and I can't get there fast enough. We're or an estate sale that says that. We love those ones.
I feel like as much as I like a good flea, I get almost overwhelmed at flea markets, and I don't know where to focus. Whereas in an estate sale, it's smaller, and so it's generally a little bit easier. You know what the rooms are going to contain. Kind of, it's a little bit easier for me. I get overwhelmed at flea markets.
I think the estate sales, I mean, not now, but before COVID and everything, especially here in DC, where you're walking into a diplomat's house.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can't, I remember, when they had like, what was it, John Glenn's house.
We went to it.
She did. I didn't.
I was like,
Yeah.
standing there shaking, like, this is insane. If I buy a ballpoint pen from here, like, it literally doesn't matter.
Right.
I don't know. It's just such a privilege, I think, to be part of like history by itself, but then to be in DC and really be part of this history and then kind of like take those items and let them live on. I think it is such a privilege.
Yeah, and I mean,
Students,
it's generally just a curiosity about how other people live too,
Sure.
right? I mean, for John Glenn, it was not just about the items, but also, his wife had a lot of rattan serving trays, and a lot of you could tell these were people that entertained often, and some really pretty things, but also some fairly simple things, but she had a lot of it. And it's an interesting, side of their life that you wouldn't necessarily know if you didn't go.
Right. I was like, oh, I think they're barbecuers.
Yeah.
They like to get their grill on.
Well, I went to an estate sale and bought if you saw in the stories the other day, that screen.
Yes.
It was hanging in their sunroom, and with this beautiful Baker furniture. And I had hired an architect in my old house to help us redo our bathroom because we didn't know if some walls were load bearing and stuff. And she showed me her portfolio, and she told us whose house that was. And my husband had worked for the government and had represented him in a case before. And so I went in the house and I'm like, this is so familiar. How do I know this house? And I figured out who it was because I had seen that picture in
Yes.
the portfolio, and she told me who it was. And that's not why I bought the screen. And actually, I'm not a real fan of this politician, but it's someone we hear in the news all the time.
Isn't it wild?
Yeah.
I mean, really, you don't know. And then you walk into these homes and you're like, oh, they owned that store down the street, or I mean, whatever, or
Yeah.
oh, Senator fill in the blank, or so crazy. So would you rather go to an auction or do an online auction or go to a thrift store?
Thrift store
For sure. Again, for the same thing, what you're talking about is the tangible, right? You want to be able to touch and feel and look at the items. That and the prices at a thrift store are a million times better. So
I'm with
at this point.
What is your most prized family heirloom?
So for me, I have several actually pieces of furniture that my father made. My father was an engineer by trade, but he, as a hobby, made wood furniture. And my uncle, his brother in Italy, actually owns a shop where they restore antique furniture. So all the furniture that he makes or that he made was, fashioned after antique pieces. And so I have a few of his pieces in my house, and those are my most favorite things. In fact, the cabinet that I show a million times over and over with the glass doors, my father made. And it is imperfect, and the drawer, like the cabinet doors, don't necessarily line up perfectly, but it's those imperfections that I know are from him and that he made that with his hands. And so to me, there's no value I could ever place on any of those pieces.
So sweet.
Yeah.
What about you, Tracy?
Well, I have a lot of little things that I like, but one thing when I was a little girl, my mother worked, and so she would drop my brother and me off at my grandmother's house. They were farmers, and my grandmother would make sure we got on the bus and we'd get off the bus at her house, and she always had this little Avon bottle on her dresser that was probably like milk glass, maybe. It was white, and it had little purple flowers painted on it. And when I was little, I just always look at that bottle and think, those are the prettiest flowers I've ever seen. And when she passed away, I was going through her stuff and I couldn't find that bottle. And I told everyone, like, it's not valuable, it's nothing. But I just used to always love that little white bottle it had the stopper, little perfume bottle with the stopper. anyway, one of my aunts found it in her stuff somewhere and gave it to me. And I mean, I don't even display it. It's not even like something that you would display because it's Avon. I mean, it's not, but I just remember that from my childhood. So I love that. But it's like up in a closet somewhere. One of my aunts tied a big purple bow
It's
on
in the
it.
Camino closet somewhere, right? In the
No,
Camino
not that
office?
one. I think it's over in my bedroom somewhere.
Oh.
But
To you at like what, 6? That was the fanciest thing ever,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
You know, I think those are like,
and my grandmother wasn't fancy, but this little bottle just always intrigued me for some reason. It was, you know, she was a real down to earth person, and I don't even know why she had perfume. I remember her wearing it, but it was just a bottle that I just always loved at her house. And
oh, I love it. But that's what makes it an heirloom, you know?
and I mean, if my house was burning, I'm not sure that would be the one thing I would save. I would save my kids or some other thing, my dog. But you know, I really wanted that out of her house when she passed away.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for doing this today. I cannot tell you how much I learned. This was so incredibly helpful.
You learned it too.
Sorry to make y'all do homework. Tracy, thank you for, you know, spending your morning polishing that picture. Sorry about that. So this is Tracy and Cristina from Camino Collective Home. They are an online retailer, and they have a booth at Crops Vintage Market for everybody who is local. Go check it out. It is fantastic. Thank y'all both so much for
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Oh, I want to add, Crops isn't open until June 1st, but we will be having it closes for the winter. But we'll be having tent sales, some tent sales in March and April and May.
Yep.
So
when did they close?
it closes the 24th of December.
It closes every year.
Every year. He doesn't have it open in the winter.
No.
I literally went on the 24th of December. I think I went actually on the 23rd to buy
That little coffin.
that oh, I love it. I love it. I'm gonna take some pictures and put it up, but it holds all of our keys. It's right next to my masks, which, you know,
Yeah.
important things in our house right now. And I love it.
Yeah, so, but you can come by in March, April, May. We'll have an outdoor thing,
And we're also on Instagram.
Yeah.
And Etsy.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank y'all so
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate it.
very much. Thank you so much.